You're driving on a normal Tuesday afternoon. The road is clear, the sky looks harmless, and traffic is moving steady. Then, without warning, the light disappears. Not fades, disappears, as if someone flipped a switch and turned day into night. The first raindrops hit your windshield. Then, the sound changes. Sharp, violent, metallic. Your entire vehicle begins to shake. You're no longer in a rainstorm. You're trapped inside a hail bombardment, with ice chunks nearly 2 inches wide slamming into your roof like thrown rocks. Visibility drops to zero. Drivers around you panic. Engines stall. The highway grinds to a standstill, and within minutes, the ground turns white. The drainage systems fail, and entire neighborhoods begin to flood. This wasn't a winter storm. This was a 15-minute disaster that crushed cars, shut down highways, and turned KwaZulu-Natal into a full-blown emergency zone. Today, we're breaking down how this storm exploded so fast and why communities across the world should pay attention, because events like this are no longer rare. Hours before chaos struck, meteorologists across South Africa were already uneasy. The South African Weather Service had issued Level 4 and Level 5 severe thunderstorm warnings, the highest risk tiers in the region, alerting residents that the atmosphere was primed for something volatile. Warm surface air, upper-level instability, and a fast-moving cold front created a textbook setup for explosive storm development. But no one expected it to escalate this fast. By early afternoon, clouds began stacking over Hilton, Pietermaritzburg, and Durban, rising like dark towers in the sky. What looked like a typical summer thunderhead quickly evolved into a supercharged storm cell. Thunder rolled across the hills. The wind shifted. The sky darkened several shades beyond normal. Minutes later, the air pressure dropped sharply, a classic sign the storm was tightening and preparing to unleash its full force. Residents stepped outside to take a quick glance and instantly sensed something was wrong. Mist formed unnaturally fast. Humidity surged. The horizon turned a gray-green hue, a color Americans often associate with tornado outbreaks and violent hailstorms. Drivers on the N3 highway, unaware of the monster forming above them, continued their commute. Families ran errands, students headed home, businesses wrapped up their day. Life appeared normal, until the very moment the storm switched on. And when it did, it wasn't gradual, it was instant. The early warnings many brushed off as routine suddenly transformed into a real-time disaster, unfolding faster than anyone could react. When the storm struck, it didn't arrive gently, it attacked. The first wave of hail hit the earth with such force, many residents thought a roof had collapsed or a tire had blown. In reality, it was ice, hard, fast, and merciless, hammering the ground in a barrage that sounded like thousands of rocks dropping from the sky. Within seconds, cars across Hilton, Howick, Pietermaritzburg, and the northern suburbs vanished under a sheet of white. Hailstones nearly 1.75 inches wide smashed into windshields, ricocheted off roofs, and bounced violently across the pavement. The storm was so intense, the drivers described the hail not as pellets, but as punches, each impact shaking their vehicles as if something heavy were striking them over and over. The ground transformed almost instantly. Sidewalks disappeared under a thick, icy layer. Streets became rivers of slush rolling downhill in fast, icy currents. Drains clogged within minutes, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of hail and water. Traffic slowed, then crawled, then stopped completely. Headlights flickered uselessly through the downpour, beams dissolving into a curtain of white with no visibility and no sense of direction. Some drivers pulled over instinctively. Others froze, gripping the wheel while hailstones pounded the roof so loudly they couldn't hear anything. Not the engine, not the radio, not even their own breathing. Residents inside their homes were no safer. The sound against their roofs was deafening, echoing through bedrooms and living rooms like a rogue drumline. Water flooded into yards. Gutters overflowed. Air conditioning vents rattled under the weight of accumulating hail. What made it terrifying wasn't just the intensity. It was the speed. In under 10 minutes, an ordinary South African afternoon became a frozen disaster zone. What started as a weather advisory became a full-blown emergency, and the worst was still coming. Sections near Town Hill flooded so fast that water poured across lanes like a river cutting through a canyon. Flowing water and rolling hail made the asphalt vanish beneath a swirling, icy surface. Some vehicles stalled as freezing water reached their engines. Others became wedged behind fallen branches, debris, or abandoned cars. Visibility collapsed to a few feet. Emergency responders couldn't reach stranded motorists. Police ordered portions of the N3 closed, but by then it was too late. Drivers were boxed in by walls of static traffic, unable to move forward or backward. The N3 had become a dead-end trap, with thousands stuck in vehicles rapidly surrounded by rising water and relentless hail. Crews tried to reach them, but slush nearly a foot deep made progress painfully slow. Radio calls reported cars stuck in fast-moving water, families trapped in flooded vehicles, and entire segments of freeway becoming impassable. Tow trucks couldn't get through. Ambulances couldn't enter. Even police cars struggled for traction. Fear took hold inside the gridlock. Parents shielded their children. Truck drivers warned each other over CB radio. Visibility is gone. Don't enter the corridor. It's getting worse. The highway had turned into a frozen battlefield. No one could move. No one could escape. The storm controlled everything. While the N3 froze under mountains of hail, neighborhoods around Pietermaritzburg and Hilton faced a different crisis. Violent flash flooding that surged through streets with almost no warning. What began as slushy runoff quickly transformed into fast-moving sheets of icy water that tore through communities in Presbury, Town Hill, Blackridge, Old Hyrick Road, and Sweetwaters Road. Streams formed on every hillside, cutting through gardens and driveways before pooling in lower streets. In some areas, the freezing mix climbed over a foot deep, pushing against front doors and creeping into living rooms before residents even received alerts. Families scrambled to protect their homes. Towels, blankets, and plastic barriers were shoved against doors. Others rushed to move their cars only to find them already submerged in swirling icy water. Parents grabbed kids and pets, wading through ankle-deep hail slush in search of higher ground. Strain drains clogged instantly, smothered by hail packed over them like wet concrete. Water backed into streets, then yards, then homes. Basement windows cracked under pressure. Garages flooded. Electrical boxes sparked. Within minutes, calm neighborhoods were overwhelmed by icy torrents. Residents described the moment with disbelief. It felt like the landscape changed. One minute the street was there, the next minute it was gone. Low-lying areas suffered the worst. Cars stalled and drifted. Footpaths vanished. Small shops shut their doors as water rose along storefronts. People living near riverbanks or in informal housing faced even greater danger as water pressed against foundations and threatened to sweep away structures. The biggest fear wasn't property loss. It was how fast everything changed. 10 minutes earlier, it was just a storm. Now, it was a full community emergency. Families didn't have hours to prepare, barely even minutes. The storm gave them only seconds. As the storm finally loosened its grip on KwaZulu-Natal, the damage felt unreal. Highways buried in ice, cars crushed by hail, neighborhoods flooded in minutes, families shaken, exhausted, grateful just to be alive. In a single afternoon, the region learned how quickly a routine storm can turn into a once-in-a-lifetime disaster. But beyond the shock and destruction, this event carries a message the world must hear, especially now as extreme weather becomes more violent, less predictable, and far more frequent. Warnings matter. Preparation matters. And when everything else fails, community matters most. Neighbors helping neighbors, first responders pushing through impossible conditions, families protecting one another. If this storm proved anything,
It's that nature can change your world in seconds, and the only thing we control is how ready we are when it happens. Thank you for watching and staying informed. If you found this coverage helpful, please like the video, share it, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring real-time updates to those who need them. And before you go, here's a question. If a storm like this hit your area without warning, what's the very first thing you would do to keep your family safe? Drop your answer in the comments. Your insight could help someone prepare for the next storm.